Hey friends, welcome to the Storied Arcs podcast. I'm your co-host Mike, and today we have another very special creator interview. We are bringing to you Lee Loughridge, who has done The Good Asian, which we just covered, but also Not All Robots, which we covered last year by Mark Russell and Mike Diodato. And we are so excited to share this interview with you, although we do have one important note first. We do have a family-friendly rating on podcast apps, and we have marked this episode explicit. Long story short, we had a great interview with Lee, but we weren't censoring as we go, and it would have been hours and hours of work, and honestly, it wouldn't have felt like a very authentic Lee experience had we bleeped out every other word. So I just want you to be warned that if you're listening, through a loudspeaker at work or anything like that, maybe put headphones in. We will assume you know what to do since there is an explicit warning on this episode, and we're giving it to you up front. Just wanted to give you a heads up. I hope you really enjoyed this interview. It was an absolute blast talking to him. Be sure to check the episode description for important links, including to storiedarcs.com, where you can see all the details on this interview and links to all of these projects. And thanks for listening. Okay, well, actually, let's start all the way at the beginning. Let's say, how did you get, and this can be as short as long as you want, how did you get your start in comics, both as a reader and as an artist?
So I never read them.
Never read them. You're the second colorist who's told us that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just wasn't what my friend group was into. I think comics a lot of times is proximity based, where you live and what, who you're hanging out with. And I didn't know anyone that read that was into it, but I was more like the Mad Magazine guy. Like I collected wacky packages and, I loved the art side of Mad, and I got to work on Mad for a couple of years. So for me, that was it, and I loved Heavy Metal Magazine.
Yep.
I was a big Kiss head. Sure. So I was like a fringe guy. So
sure. Yeah. So it's not like you'd never seen color illustrations before. It's just not in like superhero
sequential
stuff.
Art form.
Yes.
I graduated art school, and then at the time I was really into graffiti, so I had all these sketchbooks, and I did tons of stuff with color, and I was really good with marker at that time. I was like a marker, total marker head. And a friend of mine, this guy Dan O'Connor, he said, you gotta talk to my friend Arnie Jorgensen, another Jorgensen. And he works with Image, or he was working with Marvel, but he's an artist, and he goes, you should do color because the color sucks. This was like 93, right?
Yeah.
And but like it was right when Spawn hit, right when Olaf like changed the game, and he said, and Dan was telling me, he goes, you got to look at Spawn. That book's next level. These Image guys are changing the game, but like the lion's share of them are terrible, and I don't think it was necessarily their fault. The color was really limited then. There was like a 25% system then, so like you had 4 yellows. You had 25%. 50, 75, and 100. That's it. And then mix that across CMYK. And so I got with Arnie, and I was like, I had a kid in college because I'm I'm that guy. And I'm just that virile and fertile. So I really wanted a job at home. And it's like, what do you do with an art degree? My degree was like, I did independent studies like the last year and a half because technology was changing and the school was way behind. So they let me kind of do what I wanted. So I just dove into comics. There was a shop right down the street from my house I could walk to, and I just started going through them, and they did look shitty. Like a lot of them, like the color wise, like if you looked at an Image book and you looked at a Marvel book, holy shit, the difference. Like,
the color palette was, it was stark, which part of the reason why those Image guys left, right? And they, obviously it was a rights issue, but I think they wanted a higher quality book, higher quality image, all of that stuff. Yeah, definitely.
For sure. Yes. So that's kind of when I came in, where I thought, drawing wise, I was always a pretty decent artist, but I'm like a reference guy. Like I can't do anything out of my head. So that's troublesome. And I'm slow.
A lot of guys are reference guys, but yeah.
Yeah. And then Arnie sent me a bunch of blue lines, and he goes, well, maybe you want to ink. And then, because I was a good inker, but again, slow. And I'm like, fuck, like just economically, it wasn't going to work, for what my output could be. And then color, I knew I could crank markers like that. I felt confident with, and I knew I could do better than, let's say, half of the people that were doing it. Because let's be honest, back in the day, like editors were just throwing color guides together.
Yeah,
it was so like not thought about. It was just,
whoever
it was
yes.
like,
it was just get the book out, right? It was
yeah,
we get the lines in, it's inked, and then just into the machine and get it out. Yeah.
Super last minute, that's why Superman book, you just do Superman flat and then, background yellow, background red, it's just real sloppy. And then, you do those, the guides were on Strathmore paper, and some people used watercolors, some used gouache. I kind of used a combination of all. Mostly marker, but I'd watercolor like big sections and colored pencil at the end. Like my guides always looked okay. I definitely was like, I was run of the mill to start, because I was doing what I thought they wanted. I was looking at X-Men books, and I'm like, oh, this is what they want. And then, I'll just go forward a minute, but until I saw Matt Hollingsworth's guides, his guides got sent to me by accident, and I was like, "Holy shit!"
By accident? What do you mean? Like, so
they send they send them back after they're done, and they just sent his to me by by mistake, and they were beautiful, and I had an assistant at the time, and I was like, "Shit. I got to step up my game. Like I've been doing what I think they want. I need to I need to do what I initially intended to do. But you get caught in that machine where you're like, I just wanted a job.
Sure.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, I think that's how most people have to start out, is to say like, I'll be an artist later and I'll do what they want to pay the bills right now.
Yeah. I didn't have the balls. I was just like, I just needed a damn job.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, you can't come in with something totally wild that they can't print and risk never getting a phone call again. So
yeah, I didn't know the process. So I learned the process. Like Marie Javins, now editor in chief at TC. Like
TC, yeah.
She sent me blanks way back through Arnie. Like she was one of the only people that was helpful then. Because I was just like cold calling Marvel. Like I'd open a book and go, Rob Tokar. And I'd call Marvel and go, can I speak with Rob Tokar? I remember one time I got him on the phone. I'm like, hey, my name's Lee Loughridge. I'm, looking to get some color work. And he goes, who? He was the total dick. Like, how the hell are you? Why are you calling me? And he's like, dude, send samples. Don't call me. Quick.
Yeah. Well,
like,
that sounds like it sounds like a golden age story with a modern ending. Cause I feel like people would call Stan Lee like that and would be like, oh, there's, 6 guys work at the Marvel office. And some guy says, hey, I picked your thing up on the magazine. Stan says, grab a pencil and join us. Now in the modern world, it's like, why do you have this number? Go away.
Yeah. And it was also like opportunity meeting preparation. I wasn't prepared. Like I can run my mouth. Like I was prepared mentally, but not mentally.
You were prepared to receive money.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was prepared to take a job. I was like, oh, I'm going to be the dude. They're going to see my work and go, fucking phenom, job, day one.
Right there.
Example.
Yeah.
We're so happy to have you. Dude, this is genius. And that wasn't, I sent original guides for like a year and a half. Every Friday, some editor got 6 pages. And because I had to send originals because I didn't have money for color copies and they would have looked like shit. And they just kept sending me rejection letters, and then I'd tape them to my wall. I had a wall full of them, and nice. Then
so when was
now you use your Eisners to block that wall? You just slowly have trophies and medals.
So when did that break? You're talking, the start of Image and Spawn. That's 92, 93, something like that, right. Early 90s. So when did it break for you where you were getting like steady work now, where this is now your profession?
So I started in 92. I started trying to get work. Like I started practicing and working endlessly. And then there was a comic forum at SCAD where I went, Savannah College of Art and Design. So they would do these comic forums. They'd have editors come in and artists. And that year they had Mark Chiarello was coming, and he at the time was art director of DC.
Okay.
So all my eggs were at Marvel. I saw Mark was coming, and he was art director, color director. And I thought, oh, this is fucking perfect. Like, I've got the guy. So about a month prior, I sent him a handmade ransom note saying that I'd been kidnapped and give me work so I can pay my ransom so I don't get killed. And I said samples to follow. And then like a week later, I sent him samples. And then I got lucky. The morning of he did a morning talk. No one goes to morning talks. And it was me and Derwin Talon, who was a professor there at the time. And I'm like, oh shit, I've got this guy all to myself. And when I introduced myself, I said, hey, I sent you samples last week. And he goes, oh, ransom note guy.
There it is.
I was like, bingo.
Yeah.
So, and then in my memory, I had him by the neck against the wall, just
sure.
Give me a damn
captive
job.
audience too.
Yeah.
Oh, I had a stack of pages, and I'm going through them with them. And I learned how to code, because you had a code back then, right? You had not a code of honor.
Yeah.
Like if you do like flesh, you draw a line from that face off to the side of the guide, and you'd have to write yellow 25, red 25.
Yeah.
Oh, the actual, okay.
So you have to do that. Like Superman's blue is R25, blue 100. His red is yellow 100, red 100. I can give you every code for everything. Wow. So you had to learn those codes. And then it got more difficult. Then they went with a 10% and then a 5% system. So you can kind of tweak things and guess until the book came out. So I was telling a friend about this week. Like, I used to get my comics, and then I'd go to eat sushi and look at what colors were wrong. Like, oh fuck, I did that. That purple's terrible. Like, and then I'd cross. We had these printed guides of all all the colors. So I had a bunch I had X'd off. Like, those do not work. They don't print right. Because you have papers and finishes and stuff like that. So, but I met with Mark, and then it was really helpful. Like, he turned me on to a different way of thinking in terms of paleting and stuff like that. And then that night I went home and then did like 6 more pages. I was like, I get it now, like, because he's the best. So I came back the next day, and he goes, come to my my portfolio review and we'll talk. And then I went to his class again, and then he was referencing me. Lee knows Lee knows how to code. And I'm like, oh, this guy.
Now you're in. Yeah, you're in.
I'm in. And then I go to portfolio review, and I'm next in line, and then he just gets up and splits. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And it gets better. Then I go home. I lived like a block away, and I get a big package from Marvel. And I'm like, holy shit, I got work. Like, and at this point, I'm like, fuck you, Mark Chiarello.
Yeah.
I got
I'm not
work
going
from
to
Marvel.
DC. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I open up the package, and it's all my submissions. And basically a letter saying, like, in my memory, dude, do anything but this. Do anything but this. So
I'm so glad we're doing this interview now, because these are all funny now that you've made it.
Yeah.
But I'm sure these weren't funny stories at the time.
I was like, I was, when I got the package, I had my son, I was walking him in an umbrella stroller, and I got the package. So here I am freaking out, and I open it, and next minute I'm like, just tear down the cheek. And I'm like, oh, I'm a loser. And then I collected myself, and I was like, fuck this. I'm going back to find Mike Mignola was there. And I'd done a bunch of his. So I did a bunch of his pages. So I was like, I stacked the deck. So I'm like, fuck this. I'll go to Mignola, and then he's going to see my genius and then hire me. And Chiarello was his colors. So I went to Mike's talk and then pinned him down, showed him all this stuff. I mean, I did full 11 by 17s of Mignola stuff.
Wow.
And he's looking at it, and he's like, these are great. I like this. And then Mark walked up, and Mike's like, do you know this guy? And Mark's like, oh yeah, we talked yesterday. I saw him. Hey Lee, what's up? And then he offered me something. He's like, He's like, I have a 10-page showcase story. If you're interested, I'd like you to do it. And I was like, just if you give me the chance. He goes, you got the chance. You're good. Like, I'm giving you work. And then, so it was the best moment of my life. I was like, done. I have a job. I'm, my mind, I'm like, I'm set for life.
So
I
that
remember
got
telling my, go ahead.
So that got you into the DC, this kind of universe, working for them, because I know a lot of your longest runs, maybe the most famous books you've done, were under the Vertigo banner, which is obviously a DC imprint. So
yeah,
was it a matter of just getting work at DC and then finding your way over to Vertigo, or how did that happen?
Yeah, I got work with DC first. When I was doing that 10-pager, Mark tells me, hey, do you want to do this issue of Green Arrow? And I'm freaking out. I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, 4 pages. It's taken me a day to do each page because I'm freaking out. Yeah. And it was, what's the story? I can't remember.
Was that Mike Grell's run, or is that?
Yeah. Yes. It was,
while he was still on it.
And Aparo.
Okay. Which is great. Yeah. Great Green Arrow.
Dude. So I get that issue, and then I start plowing through that while I'm doing the other. Now I'm like, I'm on 2 projects, and then it was 30 pages. I'd never done 30 sequential pages. I was like, holy shit, like, how am I going to get through it? And I did. And then I finished it, put it in the FedEx envelope. I dropped it in the FedEx box. And then I got in my car. I was in Savannah. I got in my car and I drove to New York that day.
Okay.
So I drove all night, got to New York that morning, banged on DC's door. Finally, Torello came in. I was there at 5 a.m, sleeping in my car. And then, then I show up and he goes, wait, what? He goes, wait, why are you here? I go, I finished Green Arrow. He goes, where is it? I go, I sent it FedEx.
Yeah, I'm like, goes, you started a race with your own FedEx package.
Yeah.
And you could have saved yourself $10 of FedEx.
He goes, why wouldn't you bring it with you? I go, what if the car caught on fire?
You're like, what if we got my life? My life is one thing, but the work, like, we gotta send that with FedEx. Yeah.
I had that discussion with myself, like, while I was dropping it in the box. I'm like, should I drive it up? I'm like, no, anything can happen. I'm going through my head. I go to the bathroom somewhere and someone steals the package. Like I said, FedEx doesn't lose things, so I'm just going to do that. And then I met with the whole Bat team. With Scott Peterson and Jordan Gorfinkel and Darren Vincenzo. And then we all went to lunch and they were just like, you are a lunatic, to drive here all night. I go, I want to go over these guides with you guys today. Tell me where it sucks. Tell me where it's good. I need to do this. Like, I've kicked the door open and you're going to have to kill me to get me out of here. So they love that shit. They were, I sent them stuff all the time. I sent them money for coffee. I sent them peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I did the funniest stuff. I was so thankful to have the work. Mm-hmm. But then when I got in, I really wanted to do Batman adventures. That was my goal, because I was always attracted to the simpler stuff. Mm-hmm. And plus back then, like, when it went to the separator, they would ruin your guides anyways. It was rare it would come out well. So, I mean, I did a lot of really bad books, but I'll take half the blame. And then I got Batman Adventures, where they can't fuck it up because it's flat. So I love those books. But then when, Vertigo was going on, I really wanted to get upstairs, and I kept trying to get upstairs. But, back then you're pigeonholed. You're pigeonholed as a colorist, a writer, a letterer, an inker. You don't do anything beyond that. And especially if you're DCU, you are not Vertigo.
Sure.
That is a different mindset. And I was like, no, I am Vertigo. This is the door I came through first.
Well, you talked about Kiss, heavy metal. I mean, like that, all those things, you put that into a stew. If you put that into comics, that's what Vertigo was, especially back in the late 90s, early aughts time. That seems to be what your mindset definitely would have been.
Yeah, I can't remember what the first book was, but it was for Axel Alonso. Mark put me on to him, and then I did a book for him, and he loved it because I could do whatever I wanted. And by that time I was in the business a few years. So I had my chops pretty, they were going up pretty good then. And then Axel freaked out, he loved it. He's like, you're my guy now. And then that was it. And then through him, I met Karen and Shelley and then worked closely with them for ever. Then I got pigeonholed as the Vertigo guy.
Vertigo guy, sure, yeah.
So
which I guess maybe there are worse things though to be pigeonholed in the industry as.
Yeah, it was frustrating though, because like when Dan DiDio came in, I was Vertigo guy and he hated Vertigo. Mm-hmm. So like he was letting go of all those people. I was blacklisted completely by that jerk off. And admittedly, he doesn't know art. So that was a frustrating time, and literally like 2 days after he got fired, I got hired. I got hired.
It was Mark Waid, I think, too. Mark Waid is maybe the person who knows the most about comics and comics history, and had said he would not write for DC again, and while Didio was there. And when Didio was let go, I think it was like the next week or something, it was like, hey, guess who's writing a new, like a Superman Batman story or whatever it was. It was Mark Waid. So that's it's not an uncommon story, I guess.
There's smoke, there's fire. I look forward to having words with him at some point.
No, it's funny because like on my wall behind my computer, I've got original art that I purchased, and just one of them here was penciled by Andrew Pepoy and inked by Gene Ha. And it's from the New 52 Phantom Stranger. And hilariously, they had booths next to each other at the same con. They were both like, Gene was like, oh yeah, I didn't really want to do that book, but Dan was the president and he asked me to do it. And Andrew said the same thing. And I was like, well, for $40, I'm going to buy this original piece of art as a tribute to a thing neither artist wanted to do. But they were both next to it. So I should have you color it and just complete the trinity of people who don't want to work for him.
No, that guy had everyone operating out of fear, his editorial staff and freelancers and everything. It was a toxic time there. And I was definitely vocal about it, which didn't help my plight. Because at that point I'm like, well, if you're not going to hire me, I'll just talk mad shit.
Well, it can't get any worse, right? You can't get further blacklisted, right? There's no sub-blacklist.
Like, it could have gotten worse if he went back to the ransom note thing.
Yeah, maybe.
But so ballpark it for us. How many books have you worked on?
A lot.
Do you have any idea?
I mean, the internet would say upwards of 2,000 issues.
Yeah. I'd say 2,000 is probably the number, but then you have covers and shorts. But like,
I mean that stuff's impossible to count.
It's probably 2,000, which is crazy. But I have a crazy output. Like I crank. I'm here to make a living. know?
Well, I mean, the fact that we contacted you about interviewing for The Good Asian, and then realized on the day of recording, like, oh, we've actually already covered one of your books, and the podcast has only been around for a little over a year. So it's like just picking books we like, we're hitting you more than once a year.
Good.
So that shows like how prolific you are.
It's just by sheer size. It's just quantity.
It's just a numbers game, right?
Law of large numbers, sure.
So of those many, many books, do you have favorite projects that you kind of return to, that if you're kind of beyond the point of sending samples in, but if you had to send samples, like, here's some of my favorite projects, and are there ones that you would like to have back if you could?
I got asked the other day to send samples to a company that I just finished doing a book for, and I went, dude, first off, usually what I'll do to be an asshole if they say, I go, dude, I just finished this book for you guys. And he goes, oh, that's right. I mean, it was like a mishap, but he still asked for samples, and I was dude, what samples? So I'll be an asshole, and I'll just send I'll Google my name. I'll just write Lee Loughridge art, and I'll just send him the link, the hyperlink. And I'll go, like, what the fuck? But it is a put off. If they ask for samples, you're being put off.
Sure.
Okay, so any favorite projects of yours, or perhaps like if it's a favorite and it's popular, that's one thing, Or is there like a favorite one of yours that's kind of the unsung hero and you're like, nobody ever asked me about this book, but I would love to talk about it some?
No, it's probably, I mean, a lot of the Vertigo stuff, I really enjoyed all of that. Like books that I like when people just let me do whatever the hell I want. Like Pornsack was on that. Him and Alex were like, go. I mean, Alex had his guidance here and there initially, but then he just let me do it. Like I had a blast doing Good Asian, and Alex and I will be working together moving forward. I was going to
ask a little later about that because his next book was the first arc of Once Upon a Time at the End of the World. His book with the book with Jason Aaron, which you colored him again on that. He only did the first arc on that, but seeing you guys work together again after, I'm guessing, just kind of being paired and working together on the Good Asian, it seems like it's something you want to continue working with going forward.
Yeah, and that Once Upon a Time, his style was a bit different, and I colored it a bit different. So which I thought worked. I could have gone more simple, but like it was fun. We kind of shifted it there, and I know he's working on his own project now that I'm going to do, and then I'm going to make him do one that I wrote. So
okay, when we talked to Alex, when we asked him what was coming next, he did mention that he had a book that he was working on, his thing he wanted to do. We didn't get any details on it, but
he's very cryptic and he's very hard to support because we said like, oh, do you have like a Substack or like, do you sell original art or anything like that? He was like, no, I don't have any of that.
Yeah.
It was like
French. Yeah. I was like, he's like, buy the 3 books I've published. And that was basically all we can do for him.
But it's good to know that it's good to know this thing that's not coming out though, that you'll be working on it as well. That's good to know. Good to hear. So
that's the plan. Yeah. So we talked about it several months back. Yeah. We had FaceTimed and he was like, I really want you to do this. I'm going to do my own thing, but it's a big project. So I imagine it'll take him a bit, but with Alex, he may just hit me up and go, hey, there's 80 pages on Dropbox, ready to roll.
Yeah.
But I hope he gets through it. Cause I told him, I'm like, I do this, then you do mine, which is way more work for him on my end. But
one for you, one for me kind of thing. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. I hope he does it. But
yeah, although I would imagine there's no higher compliment than hearing from someone who draws like that they love the way you're coloring their inks, their pencils, their inks, and wanting to work with you again because it means you get what they're going for and you can draw out the meaning in it rather than making it your own thing and kind of trampling over someone else's art. Which
that's the thing. I think. Like some artists don't, and I might sound pompous for saying this, they don't know what's good for them. They don't know what works with their art. And I've argued with artists where they wanted high modeling. And I'm like, no, you don't need that. Like you're too good. Don't let me step on it. Trust me. No one regards the books that look generic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's always something quite different. So yeah, I've worked with a lot of artists where I was super happy with it. And then next project, he's like, yeah, I didn't really like that. And with one in particular, Sean Murphy. So I did a project with him and I thought was perfect. And then he's like, yeah, I didn't really like it. And I go, you're a fucking idiot. You don't know what is good for you. You don't know what's right. And I know I'm not wrong. So then Dave Stewart did a run with him, and I thought mine was perfect. Dave's was perfect.
That's Dave Stewart. Yeah.
Dave Stewart over Sean Murphy is the team of all teams. And then
that sounds awesome.
He got rid of Dave. Yeah. And I'm like, you're nuts. Like what Dave did over him was, again, I thought I had hit it. Dave hit it. Dave smoked me. I was like, damn, dude, he's so good.
Oh, so, I think Sean Murphy, is it Matt Hollingsworth? I think he colors him now mostly, I think.
Yeah.
I think
it's Matt. It's Matt.
Yeah. I think it's Matt.
And again, Matt's the best. So Matt can do whatever the hell he wants. Even if it's bad, it's Matt. like he could say, no, I wanted it to look bad. You know what I mean? But like Matt can do it all. He can do high model. He can do, he's the best. Matt's an OG. Matt helped me out a lot getting into digital. He was there pretty early. Like he and I both, or he got there before me and he helped me out a ton. And because we were real similar. So I tried not to clone him. You know, it was hard because he was doing exactly what I wanted to do, or vice versa. No, I had it right the first time. So I didn't want to step on his toes, but we were real close. So I just tried to take it a tune farther than him just to make my own mark, I guess. But
sure.
Yeah, you can't argue with Matt on him, but no offense to Matt. I think Dave fucking crushed it. But Matt is crushing him too. Like, you know, it's all.
Yeah, I mean, that's an embarrassment of riches to be cycling through 3 colorists. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're all like, you know, old school guys. But but you can't go wrong with Matt. Like,
Sure.
And you can't argue with him. He can argue with me. I guess he can argue with Dave, but you don't argue with Matt. Like, Matt's right.
Okay, so I want to get into some good Asian stuff before we run out of time here, because we don't want to take up too much of your time.
Oh, the other thing, Deadly Class was probably one of my most fun projects.
Oh, love Deadly Class. Yeah, that was Wes Craig, Rick Remender. There's a lot of real cool color stuff. I mean,
even the colors, the covers. Like, I think each trade kind of broke them down, and it's like you got a purple one, you got a red one. So like kind of the monotone wash. Yeah,
that was more Wes and Rick. Like, I colored some of the covers, but that was you know, they're real, and Rick especially is always really key on design.
Like picking a color and just kind of going monotone with it is a lot of what we see in the gradation. So I was like, oh, maybe that's your style.
I did that book initially. Rick was living in my neighborhood. He came over with Wes's pages, and then I did flat. And I go, this is it. And he goes, oh, yeah, love it. Perfect. You know, we were just hanging out. And then 2 days later, he goes, model it. We need to model it. It needs to look better. Then I modeled it. We solicited it that way. And then he came, you know, days later, he goes, I think you're right. I think it needs to be flat. I go, I know I'm right. And then we went back to flat.
Yeah.
So,
oh my
but
God.
that was a treat. Wes is a genius.
I think that's the right call. Deadly Class is that was a really, really fun book. Really good book. One maybe we'll cover at some point if
I think it's definitely it's on the list. Yeah.
It's a good book. There's a lot of good stuff in that.
That's so funny. I mean, what you're describing now is the process, regardless of industry, any design working with any client.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what they need within 5 seconds of them starting to talk, but you can't just show it to them. You have to make them feel like they, you know, were in on the process. And I have another friend who went to SCAD, and she was in graphic design, and she said, like, basically, you know, she has to whittle everything down to 2 designs for clients, even though she's got like 5 drafts, because she's like, if you give them 2 and say pick one, usually they will. If you give them 3, they start mixing and matching all 3, and they know what they're talking about. So she's like, so she was like, you know, graphic design is one skill, and then getting people to buy the graphic design they actually want and need is a completely unrelated skill that they don't always teach you in art school. So
it's interesting. Like, if I do a project like for DC, like I'm doing this Teen Titans thing now, and I just, you know, I look at it, like you said, in 5 seconds, I know the approach I'm going to do. And they don't ask for samples. They don't do anything. But it's interesting, on the creator-owned stuff, we always play around with things. That's like, you know, I don't know. There's a little more. We tap more into the art side of that on the indie stuff. I think I do, at least. You know, it's more of a process. It's more of a collaborative.
Sure.
Well, that's what Alex and I kind of dream of when we're like reading these indie books, which is why the podcast only covers indie books, because we're like, we feel like we get to know the most personality out of all the creators when it's creator owned, to kind of leave it all in the field. And, you know, we really get excited whenever there's a recurring partnership. You know, I think Mark Russell maybe has another book coming out with Steve Pugh, and it was like, Mark Russell, Steve Pugh doing Flintstones was great. So I'm gonna look at whatever they're doing next. And so with you and Alex, it's like, that's an automatic pool for me. Alex's book that you're coloring, and then your book that you wrote that he's gonna draw. Even if we're talking 5 years from now.
Yeah, and then you'll color it. Yeah.
Just keep going back and forth across as many time zones as possible.
Yeah.
Well,
he needs to finish.
Yeah. We'll be sure to bug him on Twitter and see if we can motivate him. I doubt it. So I'm going to just share a page here. We just released our volume 1 podcast episode. So we found this page. We both found amusing because we were like, having the literal noir thing with like the puzzle pieces of like him reviewing all of his case data was one of those things where it's like, man, that could have been like really tacky, but it really worked here. And a couple things. One, I think you get basically the entire color palette for the book on one page here.
Yeah.
And two, I don't know if you're a puzzle doer, but the first thing I do when I do a puzzle is you sort them by color. And you can see, you get different hues on each of them, which means, they don't all connect. Like there's a lot of pieces in between these things.
Yeah.
Which I think was just a little bit of extra storytelling that the color told that, the pieces alone might not have even done. And then I noticed there's a lot of this textured color throughout the book. Even here, we get some rough distortion, things like that. I assume all of that is the colorist's decision. That's not in the pencils or ink.
No, there was rough stuff. It changed issue to issue, but he had a lot of textures that he'd thrown in on a lot of the pages.
Okay, and then you just have to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah, I can't remember. Let me look at the book. I don't think I did a texture layer on this book now. Yeah, in the beginning he was doing a lot of that. And that was a really fine zip. It was really tough to get right. So with that, I'm like, well, the modeling's been done on those pages. So I'm just going to go, super simple, not step on his art.
Sure. Yeah. That was one thing I think when we talked with Pornsack is when he was in like editor brain, he talked about being like a traffic cop and how when you're working with the writers and you're getting everyone together, kind of pre-production, figuring out what kind of direction you want to go in, and then once actual production starts, like when he gets the line work back and it goes over to the colorist, make sure that hey, you don't want to try to negate or cover up anything maybe the artist had been working on that the line work had done. And then when it's all been colored and everything and finished off and it goes off to the letterer, making sure that the letterer isn't, putting caption boxes or word balloons somewhere that again covers up something the colorist had done or the artist had done or things like that. It's about kind of finding that right balance of making sure everyone's work gets highlighted, right?
Yeah. And definitely the first couple pages I'd done a bunch of times because my theory on that was tell me when I nail it. And then I'm off and running. Then in 2 days, you're getting the issue. So once we get this handled, then I'm going to blow through it. Because
is that a common kind of thing? I would say specifically for some of the creator-owned stuff that the first couple pages are a little slow to figure out which ones are best, and then once everyone's like that one, go.
Yeah. Normally, I'll do what I want to do first.
Okay.
And then and it's always simple because you can always work the other way, but especially on this book I wanted it simple, and Alex is very particular, so we got to where we need it was a quick back and forth, but then we cranked, and then I just then they get comfortable, and then I can kind of do what then I go even farther from the original. I just kind of do whatever, but I was really in that book I was big into having a pop color and then everything else muted and then blending that pop color into the scene,
that's something Mike and I talked about. Like anytime there was specifically like if there was a flash of blood or something like that, and that was like a real bright kind of red versus what you had been seeing the pages before, which is very muted, very limited color palette. So those things really jump out at you.
That's the moment, right?
Exactly. It draws your eye right there. Yeah.
That's the problem with a lot of like mainstream books. They want everything to be this like cum shot, like
big bright color.
So I'm a giant fan of 20 pages of blue, and then that big moment. So when it hits, you're like, it's just, you can't get drawn in when everything's modeled, and I call it dipped in oil, like everything's glowing and glistening and colorful. And I get it. It's pretty, but like, I think tonally that sucks. That to me is boring. So,
well, and I think something like The Good Asian, you mentioned it maybe before we actually started recording. Obviously, this is a noir book. It's a detective. It's in that style, and so it's all about mood, right? It's all about vibes and feel, and you want to get that across. And I think the choices you guys have talked about, the ones you had made about this limited color palette, very muted. I mean, you start reading it, and you feel like it's the Dashiell Hammett. Now, you're reading any one of those old pulp detective novels. You're seeing those old movies. It feels like it's the setting that you expect it to be. And I think that's obviously, I see that's the goal you're trying to get. You're trying to get across very simply, very quickly on the page to the reader that this is the kind of world you're in. This is the kind of story you're getting.
Yeah. And I also like this. I like to try to freak out Alex, make him just, come up with a palette that he definitely wouldn't have imagined, when he was drawing it, just to, get at him in a good way,
Sure.
Like there's certain pages in that book where I'm like, that's a fucking t-shirt.
Yeah.
There's nuances that I definitely think about. Like I actually argued with Wes Craig on certain things on Deadly Class, where I would do a page where every color was only 5% different. And I remember we argued on this one like diner scene. He goes, the windows need to be blue. I go, no, fucking no. I'm like, this is magic. This page is magic, because from 20 feet it's beige. But when you get up on it, I'm like, there's so much. I go, there's science, Wes. Like that's like the only time I really fought him on something. I'm like, just let me have it. Just let me have these 2 pages. Just let me fucking do it.
Give me
I'm
these
not going to
2.
argue much. I don't have ego about stuff, but that book, there was definitely. It's probably why I left the book for a while.
Yeah,
but
that's right. You started off in that book and then came back at the end there, right? With the class.
Then I left, and then I came back. Yeah, I think we had a point where like we thought that book. I was shocked it didn't get an Eisner when it came out, because it was so much different than everything. And I think we were all a bit shocked that it wasn't. I mean, it sold fine, but like we thought it would have done way better. And then no one's complaining when everything's rock solid and everything's selling well. So when things were slipping, there was a little tension, and I was like, I didn't get into this business for tension. I'm out. I'll
right.
And then getting back, I was psyched. Rick called me and he's like, would you want to come back? And I'm like, fuck yes.
Yes, let's do it.
Yes, please. Let's end it together. And like, I didn't want to leave in the first place. We just, we just got twisted up for a minute. It was a long run. So
yeah, it did. It went long. So
shit happens. And I have a short fuse. So like, if it pissed me off, I'm out, so,
yeah,
but I was psyched to be back. I don't want to say I was right, but I might have been right.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a couple more pages up here, because I think Good Asian, and I don't know if you felt this experience with this book more than others, or if this is just always your default mode, but I noticed that you particularly do a lot of storytelling with color. And I'm just thinking of this because this morning I was reading some manga, which is, rarely in color. And there were some pages in this thing where color was important, but it's a black and white manga book. And so they're using a lot of extra words on the page to describe the colors that you would be seeing if there were color. And I was like, if only there was some solution for this. But here we've got one character's flashback memory with this yellow wash over the whole page. Right. You jump to the next page, you get a different timeline here, yet another one here, and yet another one here. And there are no like Chronos stamps saying like, fall of 29, summer of 32. Like, we're just following, and I think it's because of the colors.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly it.
And you can see a big scene change here. They're clearly different ages, different scenarios because of the color there. Now, is that something like is in the script, or you're just reading it? You have to comprehend this story at a certain level to make sure that the reader can comprehend.
It'll be in the script. It'll say flashback, so-and-so's 10 years old. This is happening. Then another flashback. Now he's,
sure, whatever. But they're not dictating how you depict that with color.
Yeah.
Those are your choices. Sometimes
I'll keep them all the same, but I think in that book, as the timelines changed throughout I think I might have kicked the line art back too, like not black. A lot of times I'll kick it back, so just to, hint at it more that it's a flashback.
So it's not a defined around the characters and all that. It's a little like a gray or a little lighter.
Yeah,
in terms of line work. Yeah,
it'll be like a dark gray. I think I did that on this. I usually do that, but like the red. I can't remember if those red. I know
the little detective eye red boxes.
Yeah.
I think Pornsack wanted them red, but like I kicked the line art back in those. I can't remember who came up with the red theme. But yeah, like, I mean, even like, no one can see it, but like this spread, like I love stuff like this. It's just all green.
Oh yeah, the green. Yeah, that's
one's so cinematic, and I think that's some of Alex's drawing too.
It's insane.
Yeah, you feel the beats and cuts like you would watching a movie. By the way, that edition I believe has page numbers.
It does,
yeah. If you shout out a page number, 54.
Oh yeah, 54 to 55. Like, but when you get this in black and white, you're like, what the hell do I do with it? Like. There's so much going on.
Yeah.
But I definitely wanted it limited with one pop, and then I did all the bursts and stuff.
I was gonna ask, like the action lines and the bursts and things like that and a lot of the fight scenes have those. Are those coming from you there?
Yeah, or those come from me, and like I like to do a lot of like I'll follow a lot of shadowing, or I'll make my own shadows up just to kind of focus you in on what I want you to look at.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, I'm a fan of just subtle. Like what's this 56 is really subtle. I just want to go real subtle with color and and then I was getting a little crazy, like page 42 with the hot reds on them with the purple.
Yeah. The shadow. Mm-hmm.
But it's so effective in drawing the eye. I mean,
there's a page also
directing our attention. Yeah.
I don't have it in front of me now, but when he walks into the Jade Castle for the first time, and then there's that big double page spread, and that's just like all the color right there, which I'm assuming is meant to evoke this like sensory overload of him trying to process what he's seeing, but we as the reader are now seeing this huge double page splash that's got all these bright colors in it to kind of get a sense of what that environment feels like.
Yeah, just to knock you out.
Exactly. Yeah. It jumps out to the reader just as it's meant to jump out to the character. Exactly. Yeah. So we got the reds and the oranges up top. You got the blues, the bottom, the kind of the pinks and purples, the greens. It's just this menagerie that we don't see anywhere else in the book, and definitely not until that point. So when you turn that page and you get that, you just an eyeful. It really does pop.
Yeah, I think the thought was different locations within, have different lighting, and then I cheated it a little bit to work in. But yeah, that was fun.
Sure. Yeah.
But a lot of that, I mean, you can see it gets a little crazier here and there as it goes on, just because I'm feeling myself. I'm like, what else can I get away with?
Well, that was another question I had here, kind of moving off the Good Asian a little bit, because the Good Asian obviously was a limited 10-issue series. You have a sense of, I'm guessing also, Pornsack and Alex had a sense of what the story was, and it's pretty self-contained there. But you've done some long, like legendary long runs on books. In the 50, 60, 70 plus issues. Fables is one of my all-time favorite books. You had a long run at Hellblazer as well. So what kind of challenges are there when you have a book that runs that long? Because you talk about like the longer you run a book, maybe you want to try things or try to expand things out. But especially something like Fables, where like you didn't do every issue of that, and Mark Buckingham didn't draw every issue of that, but
Right.
he drew a lot of those initial 150, probably 120 some odd those. When you on a run that's that long, that's just going to keep going and the story keeps progressing. How do you approach like when you're on issue, 70 of that run, you've been doing this for so long? Is it a matter of trying to try different things, or is it like, what the style is, what the story is, and so it's I don't want to say like autopilot, but it's a little smoother in that way?
I mean, it kind of is. We've been to most of the locations by that point,
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely gave it the feel, right? And the way we model, like I love working over Bucky. It's interesting because it works so well over him. I just want everything seamless in that book. I don't want you even for a second seeing a weird cut or anything. I just want everything smooth and just so you just breeze through it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll do everything there a bit truer. Everything has kind of a wash, but I think it has a sensibility. But that was the best run ever. I mean, we're finishing up this other run now.
That was the follow-up question. When you have a book like that, you're on for so long, and then it's gone for, it was like 8 years, I think it was 2015, and it just came back last year, 7-8 years, and now you're jumping back in with another story. What's it like going back after that run is done? Is it like,
it was the best? It was
like riding a bike. You get right back on and no problem.
I wish we could do it forever. I love doing that book.
Oh God, I would read it forever. I would read it forever.
Such a good story. Like Willingham, the stuff he comes up with, I'm like, God damn, you're good. And Bucky's art's so good. It's one of those books that just draws you in, the art and everything. And Bucky kind of lets me do what I want, and he's particular, but like we get it. I know.
I'd assume at this point, you have a sense of what he'd be looking for and what he's expecting, and also how to surprise him maybe in a good way after
he went through moments too. Like we did some issues. He's like, I want more modeling. I want it to be, you need to model the trees and the leaves and the highlights and this. So I did the issue, and it actually looked beautiful, and it took me forever. And then he didn't like it. He goes, "No, I didn't mean that way." He's like, "It's too much." I go, "It's what you said."
I did what you want.
It's just boredom, right? Like you're saying. Right. I think he got caught in it, and then we started making these stylistic changes, and I was like, "No, we had it." And as a reader, you change that up. That'll freak people out. Even an art team change freaks you out. But that's how I was on that.
You can accept a new art team. If a new art team, okay, but if it's the same crew there, yeah.
So we had like a blurb there, maybe in the 80 or maybe in the hundreds, early hundreds, and then it kind of settled down because he was doing stuff too, where he was doing like ink washes and stuff, like we did on the annual and things like that. But I think that's him wanting to step out and just kind of show how good he is.
Sure.
Because he is something else.
At some point, you're not necessarily making something better, right? You're just making it different. For the sake of being different, right? 120 some odd issues, you start thinking, maybe let's try something else here. But then you're right. You go back to it. Like, no, we had the formula nailed 40 issues ago. Let's keep that going.
Fuck with it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do it, or there's that old school thought of, everything needs to be high modeled. And, but then you look at like Not All Robots Gets an Eisner. Guess what? That was pretty simplistic.
Yeah.
Like you can go over Diodato a couple ways, and I just kept it pretty simple, and that's a way to get through it a bit quicker because we have deadlines. And I thought that's all it needed.
I mean, you say simple, but it's like elegant simplicity because
that's what I mean. Yeah,
it did everything it needed to do.
Yeah. I don't want to hook you up on anything. I want it to hang you up. I just want it to be smooth where you're not really paying attention to it. You know what I mean? Sure. You don't get hung up anywhere.
Well, and I don't know how much back and forth did you have with Mike on that project? Because his letter. None. Oh, you had none? Wow. Okay, so his letter, did you ever read it in the back of the trade? He says, because man, I have never drawn so many robots in my life. joking aside, drawing robots is actually a tricky thing, especially the kind I chose to draw with no human resembling faces, because it makes it much harder to show their emotions. And these robots do have emotions. I had to rely on my ability to depict body language to make it work. And I think him drawing all of these robots, you've got a lot of characters that are robots. And I noticed that to help us out a little bit, you added slightly different hues of coloring to different robots to help us distinguish from panel to panel. And I was like, man, after reading his letter, that's something I kind of assumed that you would have been kind of helping him out at his request, but no correspondence. And you just knew like, oh yeah, drawing robots is hard. Drawing a lot of robots is really hard.
Yeah, it definitely was like, I know like Axel, like we definitely talked about just making the robots distinctive. I mean, you have to.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But of course I did it pretty subtly. But you know, yeah, we got yellow, we've got red, you know.
Yeah, you got yellow, you got red. Like, and you kind of believe like if I was in the room, they would look about the same color.
Right.
But it's, you know, it's lighting and it's mood and it's a couple things that have kind of created some accents so that I can tell these faceless characters apart.
Yeah, there was definitely, and maybe Mike had brought that to Axel, but we definitely talked about making them distinctive. I mean, again, you have to.
Yeah.
They're fucking robots. They can't all be silver.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you got the green you got the green robot staring eye to eye with the human character, and we kind of convey the rage in two directions. So, yeah, I mean that book was just completely brilliant and a total surprise, and one that I was like, I think at the time I wasn't that familiar with Mark Russell. I just thought the cover art was so fascinating. I think I got the variant cover for the first one, which is American Gothic.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell is this book? And then I read it and I was like, what the hell is this book? But Mark knows what he's doing.
Yeah, it was good. It was maybe we'll do another one.
He's turned into quite the prolific writer. He's really churning out a lot of stuff now. So that'd be great. And was it good to work with AWA?
Yeah. It's a good company.
Yeah, they seem pretty creator friendly, but
yeah, for sure.
I think every company would like to say they're creator friendly, and we know that can't possibly be the case since they're
you know, they want their slice of the pie, but
sure,
they're one of the few like creator companies that they get work done. I mean, the amount of books they put out in those 3 years is insane.
Yeah.
You know, it's tough to do, you know, but Axel had, you know, he had a stable, you know, he knew who to get. That's why, I mean, I did so many of their books early on. I was definitely one of the first in.
I was going to say, was that from having known Axel? I'm assuming so many of those, when you look at the list of some of those initial creators who were on those first books, it was clear there were a lot of people that Axel had known and worked with at his various other previous stops. And so was that a lot of the reason? It seemed to me a lot of the reason why people bought in to AWA, because it was like, well, if, you know, we know Axel's in charge of this, and some of the other, I think there was other guys who had been with him at various Marvel stops, but these are people that they knew. And so I guess they must have felt comfortable, including you, coming in, working with them on their new studio, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm really tight with Axel, so that was a no-brainer. We talked about it I was like, whatever you need me to do, I'll do it. And then certain colorists would flake out, and then I'd go, don't do it. Don't give me that book. I'm going to take your book. So I jumped on Diodato because the former colorist wasn't getting stuff done. The stuff was beautiful, but it was taking too long. Sure. I believe that was the cause, but I mean, it was beautiful. I was like, shit. And then I did those issues in that fashion, and then I stayed on Mike's stuff, and then slowly just did it more, you know, morphed it into my style, you know, just kind of pulled back on the crazy modeling, which looked beautiful, but just not my scene.
And a lot of extra work, right?
Well, and you know, you don't have a lot of time for this stuff.
Sure.
You know, like you get a book and they're like, we need it in 3 days. You can't do that in 3 days. Like it's just, and it doesn't fucking matter. right? Like that book got the Eisner, and if you had, and I can't remember who was coloring it before, and the stuff was beautiful, it wouldn't have mattered who did it. You know what I mean? That it's a good book. It's a solid book all the way around. And I think editorially in the past, like especially the big companies, they'd get so hung up on shit like that. I'd be like, if it's cohesive and good, it'll win. So yeah, I don't know, but everyone has their opinions. It's Michael Bay or Kubrick. It's
Sure.
what you want to do.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. It's about how you tell the story. It's going to get out there. If it's good, it's good. If it's not, it's not. Right. That's kind of quality. Kind of wins out. People are they're gonna read, and the story's going to get through. So
yeah, I think in interiors you got to get through it. I mean, I'll go off on a cover. When I get a cover, I'm like, oof, all right, I'm gonna spend the evening making this look sick. And it's also like a little ego, like just going, because I know I get shit from other creators and people I know. They're like, you always get those flat books, and I'm like, yeah. But then I'll do like a modeled cover, just go, I can do that. I can do that. I don't want to. Well, it's not my style. Two, it's a lot of work, and it does look cool, if you palette it right. But yeah, I mean, I did a run on Captain America that was like heavy model. I did it after Dean White. I just matched his style, and which was fun. But it's not my style.
Sure. But you're doing that intentionally for this book and this run here, right? You're trying to
look close to what Dean was doing. I can't do what Dean does, but I can do close to it. I'm not,
you can pay homage, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a reasonable interpreter, but like not as good as him. He's a mutant.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to take up all day. I really appreciate the time you've given us. But before we wrap, is there anything people can do to support your work in particular, other than buying, single issues and trades? Do you sell original art pieces? Do you take commissions? And anything upcoming that you want to plug?
No, I really just, my Instagram is my name. I started another Instagram for my company, like Xylenol Studio. I don't know if you have there. That was my separation house back in the day.
Okay.
So like on a lot of old DC books, you'll see colored by and then separated by Xylenol. So I'm putting books out that I wrote later this year. I have one with Comixology and then one with Image. And then like during the past several years, I've written, I think, 9 full series. So I'm building those now. And so we're working on 3 right now that are being built.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'm trying to get the writing stuff out because a lot of this is slice of life. It's not superhero-y. So, and I think the market's finally right for that. That's why I never really did it earlier.
Sure. It's a lot more receptive to that now, definitely. So would your Instagram be the place that people can follow and keep a track on these releases and publishes?
Yeah, I think at Xylenol Studio is our, and then mine too. I repost everything through it. I'm just trying to keep all my creator-owned stuff in there, but it's at Lee Loughridge too. Okay, that's pretty much how I'm promoting them. But
yeah, and those will be in our episode description for anyone listening. You can just click straight from the episode to there. Yeah, and we're all about.
So I can't give you titles yet.
But no. It was
Here's a hint.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, all right.
For the audio hint. Yeah.
I'm already made merch.
I was like these. Yeah, well, that and I'm like, these like colorists and artist interviews that we're doing for an audio medium, we're really driving people to buy the books. When we're like, look at page 54 and page 55, and they're like driving in their car listening. So just re-listen again. Buy The Good Asian and all 2,000 of his books. Just get a bunch of long boxes dedicated.
Yeah, find them all.
Yeah, find them all. Yeah. And then you do some Comic Cons or just San Diego?
I'll probably do most of them this coming year because once I announce
like the big ones.
Yeah, I'm hoping to have. Yeah, I think the Comixology should come out this year.
Okay.
The Image one should come out in December. So I'll I'll be going to everything, probably, Seattle, Chicago, LA. I'm going to go on the promo tour, and really try to hustle.
Yeah, got to hustle and sell your stuff out there. So, all right, well, that's great. Yeah.
It's you're always, like, as a colorist, you're always third fiddle.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. Well, you're about to be writer on many projects.
Yeah.
So my goal is I'll start a year with one and end a year with the next. So I've got like a 10-year plan of just rolling them out, and hopefully they sell so I can keep doing it. And they're all they get dark. It's all middle-aged men story.
Like, my favorite creator is Jeff Lemire, and it's all existential dread, and I just eat it up.
Well, you're gonna love me, buddy.
I know. That's what I'm you're really speaking my language. I'm like, if you collaborate and do a song where the National is doing the soundtrack for, which is their genre, sad dad rock, and you mix that with sad dad comics, that's like,
if you like depleting testosterone and apathy, I'm your guy. And the struggles with that, I wrote an entire book on that. It's the whole series on that guy.
Put that on the blurb on the front of the cover.
That might I was like, that might be the title of this episode.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Depleting testosterone.
No, I'll be, in the next 2 years, I'll be canceled. And I embrace it. Cancel me.
Well, you'll either be canceled or you'll get Lemire's deal where you just get the green light from Image, just make whatever you want.
Yeah,
that's
the Brubaker Lemire.
Yeah,
that's what I'm hoping for. I want my first book there to sell well enough where Eric just goes, okay, you're good.
Blank check. Here we go. Sure. Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, we'll be on the lookout definitely when that's. So you're thinking that's probably next year or early next year?
I'm hoping. I thought it was going to be November, but now I'm hoping it's going to be December. It's okay. It's taken. It's Andrew Robinson drew it.
Oh, great. So okay. Yeah.
It's literally taken 10 years for this book.
Oh.
Andrew's just been he's just a particular animal.
Yeah.
So we're finally going to put it out, and it's beautiful. He's a master.
Okay. So you wrote, Andrew drew, and then sent it back to you for colors?
Correct.
Okay. Right. And you probably cranked out the colors in 3 days because you're like, I know what this thing is going to be for a long time.
His take a while because he's particular. I already, we have almost 4 issues in the can, and I know I'm going to have to go through the first 3 issues because he's so picky, but he's right. He's not wrong. I'm wrong. He's the best. So
yeah, his stuff's really, really great. So, listen, we will be on the lookout for that. Everyone listen here when the solicits hit, go pick up Lee's book. We'll so you can get that big overall deal from Image. So
there's a bunch of Andrew's stuff on the Xylenol Studio Instagram right now. I just started rolling out black and whites for the books.
Okay, cool.
I figure when I announce, you'll get some color.
Oh, awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Great to hear from you, and congrats on all the success of the books we've been discussing, and hopefully much more good fortune coming your way.
I hope so.
Dude, awesome. Thank you so much, Lee.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Appreciate it.